hope. Okay. So during this webinar, we'll be discussing the cities of Gaithersburg's Rainscape program. This is specifically for City of Gaithersburg residents. Note that there are separate programs for the City of Gaithersburg and City of Rockville residents. If you live outside of those incorporated areas, you would also need to apply specifically to the Montgomery County program if you're a Montgomery County resident. The programs differ a little bit, but there's a lot of overlap between them. So by listening to this, you will learn a lot about them in general, but I do recommend that you check out your own local program if this isn't your program. Please remain muted during the presentation. Put any questions you have in the chat box and we'll address those first. And there'll definitely be time for questions at the end during the Q&A. I'll be making additional, introductions. And while I'm doing that, if you could put some things into the chat box here. What city you live in? How did you hear about the event? Prior to learning about this, did you know about the City of Gaithersburg's Rainscapes program and what made you decide to attend tonight? This helps us kind of understand a little bit more about who you are and how we're doing and how we're reaching you and how we can help in the future. So I'd love it if you could drop those into the chat box while we're getting started. This program is brought to you by Urban Ecosystem Restorations and with funding from the City of Gaithersburg and the Chesapeake Bay Trust. So we thank our partners. And our presenters today include myself. I'm Lauren Hubbard. I'm the Urban Ecosystem Restorations Healthy Habitat Program Manager. I'm not sure if Rachel's here today. She's the president of Urban Ecosystem Restoration. She was going to try to jump on and maybe she'll say hello. And Dr. Michael Wan from the City of Gaithersburg. He's their watershed restoration specialist. So glad to have Michael here. Having trouble with my slide advancing. Here we go. Okay, so just a little bit about background about Urban Ecosystem Restoration. We're a nonprofit urban land trust that works across the DC region to create, engage, protect, and aggregate eco-functioning spaces. We're sponsoring this webinar because suburban development has historically left compacted soils, pavement, turf grass, and invasive species in places of functioning ecosystems and native habitat. These kinds of landscapes weaken and dismantle ecosystem function across the urban areas, a process that contributes to flooding, among many other problems. But it doesn't have to be this way. Suburban yards do not have to be characterized by compacted, degraded soils devoid of native habitat and biodiversity. Rather, we can make every square foot count using eco-functioning spaces, which in this context we call healthy habitats. And these landscapes work to solve multiple environmental problems by restoring ecosystem interactions. You can not only manage stormwater and support biodiversity in your yard, you can reduce heat islands, address climate change, and improve your local air quality by restoring native habitat using native trees, shrubs, and perennials. One example of an eco-functioning space is the Butterfly Commons, a project installed at the Lakelands community in Gaithersburg that replaced existing turf grass with all native garden that is now helping to reduce stormwater runoff, provide habitat, and beautify the community. This project was put together by Urban Ecosystem Restorations with funding again by the City of Gaithersburg and the Chesapeake Bay Trust. You may think your yard is small, but when we start stitching together small yards, we get larger and larger areas, and eventually we rebuild the ecosystems that have been lost. And Gaithersburg's Rainscapes program is here to help you with funding as you transform your yard for that very purpose. So with that, I'll stop screen sharing and welcome Michael Wan from the City of Gaithersburg. Hello, Michael. Let me just go to my stop screen share here real quick. Thanks for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about the Rainscapes program? What are the goals and why does the city give residents rebates for certain types of landscaping? And we'll start from there and then I'll follow up with some questions.
Cool. Well, good evening, everyone. Yeah, the city offers Rainscapes reward program to residents. And when we say Rainscape rewards, there's three kind of components to it. There's the conservation landscaping, which is just native plantings in your yard. There's the rain barrel harvesting, which is putting a rain barrel. And then there's the soil test rebates. And we're offering these projects to help kind of reduce the stormwater issues on private properties around Gaithersburg. And the conservation landscaping is like the natural drainage projects. So essentially, we're trying to incentivize residents to come and apply for the program and then get accepted. And then once you're accepted, you can start your project. And then after it's all said and done, we provide you all with a rebate on a certain percentage of how much you actually do. So that's kind of the gist of the program itself. But essentially, we're doing this because we care about biodiversity. We want to reduce the amount of stormwater that is entering into our waterways and help also solve drainage issues on properties in our community.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about how to apply, who can apply, some requirements, things like that? What's the process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I kind of was going into, there's a process where you kind of fill out the application and you get pre-approval. And then once you get pre-approval, you can start the project. And then once you finish the project, you submit the rebate form along with your receipts and some pictures of the project. And then that's when you get a check mailed to you down the road. So the biggest thing to remember is not to start the project beforehand, that there needs to be pre-approval process. And we're going to go through some of the requirements on what that entails. But essentially, it's if you're doing a conservation landscaping, you need to have a plan in place. And that could be something pretty simple as like a piece of paper with a drawing of where you want to plant stuff, a list of some of the plants that you're intending to plant there, and then also some like before pictures. And then you fill out the application, you send it over to me or environment at Gaithersburg or stormwater at Gaithersburg. And then we can kind of go through and you get pre-approval for it. So
Okay.
those are the initial steps for it.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit more about, I know people get stuck with the plan. It's daunting to many people. How detailed are you? What kind of detail are you looking for there?
I'm just looking for a little bit of an idea of where you're intending to plant it on your property. And it doesn't have to be a super engineered type of thing. It can just be a back of the napkin drawing and understanding just where you intend to do it so that we kind of have a general idea of what to expect when the project is done. But things can change from when you plan and to when you actually get the project in. I mean, we're completely flexible on those types of changes. Really, it just needs to meet the spirit of the program. And the spirit of the program is to make sure that we're kind of intercepting as much stormwater as possible and having that water soak into the ground. So if we kind of follow some of those spirits of the program, then we're very flexible in what the plan looks like and how the project is done. We're trying to be as accommodating as possible to anybody who applies to the program.
That's great. Really making it easy then is that's my take home, right? Make it easy.
Yep.
Okay, cool. How about native plants? I mean, that is when you say conservation landscaping, that's really referring to a garden with native plants. So I know that you're asking for native, but does it have to be all native? Do they have to remove grandma's lilac? What does that look like on your end?
So it doesn't have to be all natives. I think the requirement is it 2/3, I believe. But really, it just can be as much natives as possible. And we're looking for natives that, the things that help increase the ecosystem functions of the area, things that have nice flowers for all the insects and stuff like that. So we're flexible with the type of plants selected, and more so we're looking to make sure that you're not planting any invasive stuff rather than some of the other things. So I would suggest that if you have a plant in mind and you're unsure, you can always send it our way and we'll let you know. But 9 times out of 10, if it's some kind of native or it's a plant that's not invasive, it's going to be okay.
Okay, and I'm gonna guess, and you can clarify. If someone did, I run into this fairly often, that someone has a lilac in particular that they love. Do they have to take that out because it's not native, or could that stay and they could work around it and add other native plants? Is that an
I
acceptable
would say
practice?
it could stay and then you can work around it. But Lauren, I tend to rely on subject matter experts. And Lauren, you're definitely a subject matter expert. And if you think that that's something that needs to be removed, then I would say probably we would ask that. But I don't see an issue with it. I think we could work around it and mold it into the
Okay.
landscape.
All right, yeah. I mean, usually it's something like that. The turf conversion is more typical of the case, but sometimes, that like these shrubs nearby or something. Okay, so
Mhm.
that helps to clarify. How about when people, what kind of things does this cover in terms of cost? So we're talking about, of course, plants seems like an obvious one, but how about getting help? How about, to what extent can people get reimbursed in terms of the kinds of help they hire if they need to hire help? And then also, how do they hire help? How can they find help for this sort of project?
Sure. Again, we try to be flexible on what it's being rebated as long as it's directly related to the project and can be, easily justified that it is meant for this project, then we can try to rebate through the program. If you had concerns beforehand, just note it down in your pre-application and I can discuss it with my supervisor and get back to you on whether we would fund it or not. But a lot of times, we get these questions and it's something that we can fund. So anything that directly relates to the project should be able to be rebated. And then for who can help you with this type of stuff, I typically refer residents to the Montgomery County's contract professionals list. And later in the presentation, when I walk through the applications, I can show you where that is on their website. But it's just a list of all the different contractors out there who do Rainscapes program. But then, I also do suggest too going to the local watershed groups like the Muddy Branch Alliance or the Seneca Creek Watershed Partners, because they have so many fabulous people over there that know how to do these types of projects and have great hands-on experience with doing them. So that's always another great resource for community members, because they're just always willing to come out and help and talk about the projects that they've done and what seems to work for them.
I've lost you. You blipped for a minute there. Okay, you're back.
Sorry.
I
Do you need me to
that.
repeat anything?
Just that last little bit, at least for me, I didn't get it.
Yeah, so if the expenses are related directly to the project, we'll definitely look into that. And if you're looking for a professional to do the project, Montgomery County has a list of professionals you can contact. And I also recommend checking out the watershed groups like Seneca Creek and Muddy Branch Alliance.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Let's see. So, okay, so let's say someone does a project. How long does it usually take? I guess let's kind of step through it. If they, I'm going to back up one more actually. If they have trouble with the plan part, is that rebatable? Because that's sort of before they've applied, I think. How much is that part of that process, or do they pretty much have to come up with some kind of plan before they apply?
We typically haven't rebated on the plan, just because the plan portion of it can be something as simple as drawing it on just a piece of paper. So it's not anything like an engineering plan itself.
Okay.
And
So
like I said, the plan can change over time as you go farther into the project. And if you felt that it changed so much that it changed the project that you need to get it relooked at or something, again, you could just shoot me an email and I'll just scope it out real quick and let you know. But we typically wouldn't reimburse on the helping of the plan portion of it.
okay.
But we could consider it if that's something you felt was essential to you doing the project.
Okay, so you're just really, I'm just emphasizing plan shouldn't hang you up. It should be super simple. So
Yeah.
that's good to hear. Okay. Let's see. How about stepping through as far as how long all of this takes? If someone were to send you an email and say, "Hey, I'm interested," and they get the forms and fill them out, how long does it usually take to hear back from you? Do you do a site visit, or is it how does that work? How long does it take, and
Sure.
what does that look like?
So traditionally, we did site visits, and then the whole pandemic happened, and we switched to doing it online. And doing it online actually seemed to quicken up the process. So we've kind of stuck with that as of right now, in a sense. So you submit the application. It typically takes me a day or two to respond, and it could be a response that, "Hey, I've gotten your application. I'm going to get to this as soon as I can. So give me a few days." But if you need that application done in a priority manner, just let me know, and I will make that the first priority on my thing to do in the morning to review that application. It typically takes me to get back to everybody, 2 days, 3 business work days, or whatever.
That's
And
amazing. Very quick.
yeah,
Okay.
we try to
How
be as
about-
quick as possible.
How about once they're done and they are looking for that rebate? What's the timeline on that?
So that's a little bit longer because it requires a little bit more internal steps where I approve it, then my supervisor looks at it, and then once that's okay, then we submit it to finance to have the check cut and sent. And I think that only happens on either Wednesday or Thursday. But so it could take upward, a week and a half to get the check once you submit your application.
Okay, that's pretty
Your
quick
rebate
still.
part. Yeah, a week and a half into probably two weeks. I should probably hedge with that.
But not months. It's not months.
No,
right?
not months at all. No.
No.
And if it
That's
took
great.
longer, yeah, we would follow up and make sure you got it.
Okay. No, this is all very, very easy, and it's harder in the county. So this is nice to hear that you guys are pretty streamlined.
Yep.
All right. I know we had some questions, which I'm going to have to, I don't know if you have the questions. I sent you the questions that people submitted when they signed up for this. Do you happen to have those in front of you?
Yeah, I got a few of them. I know one of them was about HOA properties and
Okay.
how to do that. But I think some of those I can answer in my little quick presentation here. So
Okay.
I don't know if I should answer them now or
We'll
answer
go.
during the presentation.
Why don't you do your presentation and we'll
Okay.
see how that goes.
Got it. Let me share my screen. Bam. Pull this up. I'm assuming you can see it, so I'm just going to start here.
I can.
Yeah, essentially, these are the major eligibility requirements. You have to be in Gaithersburg. You have to get the approval before you actually start the project. And the projects need to be designed to the specifications within the application itself. And I'll pull up the application and we can go through them and we can talk about some of the specifications that are a little bit more lenient on. And then there's also a property owner agreement, which is something that can be a hangup, but it's about just making sure that what the project you're doing, like if you're planting, it's okay with your HOA or whatever group, management group that you're a part of. So yeah, those are really the eligibility requirements. And then again, we have conservation landscaping, which could be a portion of a rain garden if you were to do the rain gardens. And we have our single family residential, which is $1 per square foot converted. And then we have a maximum rebate of $500 for that single family residential program. And one of the requirements is to have a minimum 200 feet must be converted. That's another one where we often get the question about, does it have to be 200 feet of contiguous, converted turf or impervious? And the answer to that is no. It can be sectioned off. It just needs to be sectioned off again so that it's kind of trying to intercept the storm water, and that it's doing a best job as it can to filter water into the ground. And it can be kind of drawn out and stuff along like a sidewalk or along a path in your backyard. So we recognize that sometimes it can be tricky on certain properties to get that, and we'll be flexible on that one again. And that's again where the site design helps a little bit, just drawing it out so that it helps visualize where these projects are going in. And if you're on an HOA, if you're doing this on HOA common ground, the program does apply to them too. It has a slightly higher maximum rebate up to $1,000, but then again, it has to be 500 square feet must be minimum converted. And then we also have our soil rate rebate program, which works by just submitting the application. You get kind of approval, then you go out and purchase your soil test kit. You actually do the soil test, get your receipt and send it in, and then we'll rebate. And that's up to $20 per soil test or $40 per property. And then the last one here is we have our rainwater collection, which is $1 per gallon of rainwater collected, meaning if you had a 40-gallon rain barrel, then we would provide a $40 rebate for it. And it's $250 maximum rebate for single families. And HOAs have the same kind of offer where it's $1 per gallon, but it's a minimum of 55 gallons and it goes up to $1,000 per property. And then this is a link to a bunch of different resources here about, more about rain barrels. There's a native plant database. This is the Rainscapes professionals list there that I talked about from the county. And then there's more on soil testing and different places you can get soil testing done. And Lauren, you can share that with everybody here. And then the last thing I would recommend, just to stay up with some of the Gaithersburg things that are going on, that we have Green in Gaithersburg newsletter, which is an awesome resource to keep up to date on what's actually happening with our program. And we have coming up here a new program we're hoping to roll out for the Rainscapes program, which is a tree rebate program. And we're trying to really streamline this as much as possible, where we'll offer rebates to residents for any trees that they plant on their private property, up to 10 trees. And you do not need pre-approval for it. It's really anytime you planted a tree, either within the last 6 months or a year. We're still kind of debating on whether it needs to be 6 months or a year, but if you plant a tree within that time frame and it falls into one of the trees that are eligible, you can submit that application to receive either a $50, $75, or $100 rebate based on the canopy spread of it. So that's something to sign up for the Green and Gaithersburg newsletter so that you can keep an eye out when it comes out, because it'll be very helpful for everyone. And that's really all I had for that portion of it. What am I missing, Lauren?
Well, that was great. Very exciting. Nice to hear. So a little bit on the tree thing. Is that going now or not quite yet?
It's still in the works, and that's just because I've been kind of pulled in a few different directions, but it's on the precipice of being released, and I'm,
Okay.
it's getting there. But once it's ready, it's going to be one of those things. I mean, you could plant a tree right now, and as long as it's within the last 6 months, if it gets released here in 6 months, which I hope it will, then you'd still be eligible for it. So.
Okay, great. I think did you want to share showing where the website, kind of walking through the website piece a little bit?
Absolutely.
Make it easy for people to see what they should look for. And
yeah, the website sometimes can be a little tricky. We'll go here. Move this bar. So I'll start at the very beginning here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. My internet is shaky. I have to restart refresh constantly. So this is just the homepage at Gaithersburg. And if you go over here to services, you'll see that we have environmental services. And then you can scroll down here. And there's the Rainscapes rewards program. And then there's this whole bunch of, background information here, but we have our 3 different programs. We have our conservation landscaping, rainwater, soil rebate. We click on here to the conservation landscaping. We go down a little bit, just a bunch of information about the different programs, but here are the applications themselves. And you click here, and then this is the kind of application form. And I'll come back and show a few of the actual eligibility things, but that first page is just all information. The second page here, the third page technically, is just like a checklist that you just kind of go down and you can check off the different things to keep in mind. And then here's when the actual application starts, just ask a few kind of questions, some project details. And if we go down a little bit more, we will see that there is the property owner agreement. And then we have our rebate reimbursement form. So it's really just the application, then the property owner agreement. And then, once you come back, you have this rebate reimbursement form. Once you finish the program, you kind of submit this along. But I always recommend that whenever anybody submits an application, if there's something you don't understand, don't worry about it. Just leave it blank and submit it. And I will get back to you and we'll figure out the answer to a question. So don't let the application hang you up is what I'm trying to say. I would say submit what you can and we'll go from there and figure the rest out. I see Rachel has her hand up.
Yeah. Rachel, do you
Hi.
wanna? Hi there.
I'm sorry, I've been in transit. Hello,
Okay.
everybody.
Welcome.
So Michael, I just wanted to review the timeline a little bit so that I understand and hopefully others understand, especially in the context of a homeowner who needs help developing their site plan or their landscape plan and their planting plan. So if the homeowner can't do it themselves, should they, draw up their own sketch as best as they can, apply for the project, and then hire a designer to actually help them figure out what to install? Or do they need to hire somebody first and submit whatever design is going to be installed with their application? And then sort of related, it sounds like it would be an unusual situation where any of the rebate could go to pay that designer. Say that designer costs $100 or $150 to drop a planting plan.
I would say to just try to draw it up on a piece of paper how you envision something like that happening. And then, after the fact, go ahead and hire the designer, make sure you record that on a receipt or whatever, and you can submit it with your rebate at the end as a receipt portion of it. And then we can kind of have that conversation internally on whether that's something we can support or not. But I would certainly make the case that if it's directly related to the project being successful, that it may be something we can rebate for, as long as it falls within the threshold, under a $500 maximum for the property,
So
which I
it
think
sounds
is
like-
the biggest hangup is that, after you get done with all of the materials, it may be, pretty expensive as it is, but.
Right, absolutely. So, but it sounds like somebody should put in the application first, and then you'll be able to tell them before they actually hire a designer whether or not the rebate will be able to go to any of that fee. Is that correct? Or do they have to do the whole project and then find out whether or not part of the design will be covered?
I think you can submit the application and then request that I intend to have a fee with this. This looks like what the fee is going to be. I want to make sure that it's going to be, eligible for the rebate portion of it. And then if that's something you're worried about, if you're going to go ahead and do the project anyway, and you're going to be hiring somebody for this, then you can submit it at the end. And if it seems like it'll fall within, under that $500 maximum, then we can discuss that too. But I mean, again, it is $1 per square foot. So, if you do 300 square feet of landscaping, then you'll only be eligible for $300 worth of rebate.
Right.
And
Very
if the
helpful.
plants and the materials are above $300, then, you wouldn't have any funds remaining to pay towards.
Got it. And
Yeah.
then just to, for the final stages, when somebody's ready to collect their money, they basically just submit a package of receipts to you. And then just in terms of the process, you approve them, and then people can expect a check within a certain number of weeks. Does the homeowner, for example, just send in the receipts, and then as far as the homeowner is concerned, they wait a couple of weeks and the check appears in their mailbox? Or is there something that happens after they submit the receipts before they can actually get the check?
So they submit the receipts. They also submit the photo, like, post-project photos of what it looks like. And then from there, we kind of approve the whole form, and the check then gets cut once everything is approved. And then the resident would get the check in their mailbox the following weeks. Does that answer
Wonderful.
your question?
Yep. Thank you
Okay.
so much. I so appreciate it. And thanks,
Yeah, of
Lauren,
course.
for leading the way on tonight's webinar. I'm gonna close out my mute.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us, Rachel. That was UER's President Rachel Toker. I'm going to elaborate a little bit. It sounds like it's kind of important to take a before and an after photo. That would be really helpful for you. So I'll just say, take a lot of pictures of your area before you get started. It's also really rewarding to be able to see that once you've done your project. So that's another thing. So Michael, are you done showing us the website? Or are we still walking through it?
Yeah, that's just one last thing. I just wanted
Okay.
to show something about there's a bunch of resources on the website that I think I often even overlook. But if you go to the main website, there's this About Us page, and then there's the Maps and GIS.
Mm.
And if you come down here to explore the parcels, we have a great map of Gaithersburg, and you can kind of zoom in and start seeing, different the different tax parcels and who may be owning these tax parcels. If you had a question on whether this is HOA property, or if it's actually city-owned property.
I see. So if you're in some place that you try, I get these calls sometimes where there's an adjacent property and
Mhm.
it's flowing onto somebody's yard and they don't know who to talk to, or they're trying to figure out what to do about it, or could they plant it, or things like that. This would be a way to figure that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
that's helpful.
very useful.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah, so that's all I have. I know I see Ellie has her hand up.
Yep, there's some more hands. Go ahead, and Ellie, why don't you unmute and
Hey there.
hi.
I'm here with a couple neighbors, actually. Two different thoughts. One is we have a plot of land in the Kentlands behind our homes that I've been told by a couple of people on the Kentlands Green Team belongs to the city of Gaithersburg. It's at an incline, and it certainly is a wonderful place for a rainscape. But my question is, who do we speak to from the city of Gaithersburg if we wanted to do something in the back of our homes on this plot of land, this larger plot of land that's kind of no man's land right now?
Are you looking to do conservation landscaping or like some kind of planting there?
Actually, a combination of both, either conservation landscaping and rainwater, like a rainscape, because it's not only feeds, it's on an incline, so a ton of flooding happens, but also it feeds right into the sewers. This would be a superb place for one or the other, if not a combination of both.
Yeah, I probably could help start the conversation, and then depending on kind of the vision and where it's located, if it's like part of park property, there's different people within the city we kind of have to talk to see if that's something they would be interested in, partnering with, and to also see, Ellie, if the green team would be the group who's kind of driving the initiative, or if you're looking for another group to kind of drive it, and then finding volunteers and stuff of that nature. So I could definitely help start that conversation and speak with you at, whenever, and we can go from there. But I like the idea.
Oh, thanks. My other question for you was, on the other side of the townhomes is we're still on an incline. So this is the front. We obviously love the butterfly garden that the Lakelands did. Could a whole block go in their front yards, or their front yards, and if everyone's willing, apply for a rebate for a conservation landscape, or even a rainscape again, because we live on this steep incline with severe flooding?
Do you know if that's, or if is the parcels we're talking about actual parts of their property, or is that common area property?
Private front yard.
Private front, yeah. Then I would say yes, that you could apply to the program, and we can definitely work something out. I mean, do you think it would be 200 square feet for that, or would it be like 200 all together with everybody?
At least six townhomes in
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, we can make something work. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. We'll figure out something.
Yeah.
Seems like a great opportunity, right?
Yeah,
Given-
definitely. It seems
yeah.
too good to pass up.
Right, right. Nice. I mean, getting families to pool together like that is amazing. So that would be great.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I see in the chat box, Beth has asked, what percentage of the Rainscapes applications have been denied?
Zero. I'm pretty sure
Okay.
zero applications. We usually figure out a way. I mean, more commonly what happens is we have interest in the Rainscapes application, but there's if you read the application and without talking to someone like myself, it can be a little bit daunting just because there's a lot of text there. And that's something we're going to try to work on, is streamlining it and trimming out some of the extra words and really just having the basics of what we need. So more oftentimes we get questions about the program, maybe even get an application, but there's no project that turns in the end. But very rarely do we deny any applications. I can't remember if we ever have, to be honest. So
Okay, that's great.
yeah, we try to make it work, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I can, I hope everybody's getting that. This shouldn't be hard. Michael's doing his best to make it as easy as possible. So go for it. Go get your money, do something good and go get your money. Rachel is pointing out that it's a good point to distinguish between rain gardens, rainscapes. And I'll take a moment. I do encounter this confusion a lot. People think that anything that intercepts water is a rain garden. So first of all, just to clarify that a rain garden is kind of a specific kind of practice that the soil, there's a depression, the soil's dug out and there's a depression there and the water pools. So that's a rain garden, or a type of rain garden anyway. Rainscapes is a program that rebates property owners and residents with funds for having done a project that intercepts water. So, and it doesn't have to be a rain garden. It can be conservation landscaping, which in fact, I think the city doesn't really even, in your application process, you don't even really talk about rain gardens as a thing. You just are really promoting conservation landscaping, and conservation landscaping is really just a garden with native plants, right? So there's just some lingo there that we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable with. So you don't need to be building a rain garden, because that's a more complex, much more costly and much harder project to install.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. So in order for me to, well, I guess, are there other questions from the audience?
I think Becky.
Oh, I'm missing, are there hands up or am I?
Yep.
I physically raised my hand.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I don't have a good.
In kind of the same respect as Ellie, at the bottom of my court, there is a Gaithersburg City managed rainwater,
A bioretention facility?
Yeah, storm management. They mow it, they scrape the grate, they take care of it. And it's a huge bowl that could be managed besides all the water that's coming in through the tubes. It could be planted. So is there a process for that to come from my neighborhood or?
Yeah, so there definitely would be a process. Sometimes it's difficult for me to kind of answer it directly in this case, just because I need to learn a little bit more about what the actual facility is, where it's located, and whose responsibility it is to maintain it. And those things sometimes determine what is eligible to be done in those areas, and who is actually maintaining it kind of determines what can be done in some sense. So I would say, yes, there's probably something that can be done, but also I need to know a little bit more about where it's located, and I'm happy to have that conversation now, or you can send me the address or like a picture of where it's located and I can follow up. But you're looking to have more plantings there, correct? Am I understanding that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot half of it the kids use as a snow hill whenever we have snow. But then there's a huge area that's not for that. And then separately, Lauren came out and is doing a,
Site assessment.
Design.
Yeah.
okay, she's doing that for me. And it could be in 2 stages or 3 stages. I would only be able to apply for 1 a year, is that right? Or only 1 ever?
Right now, I think we're talking just once a year for funds wise, just, you know, if we ran out of money. But yeah, so you know, when you applied for your first application, then just say, hey, you know, I'm intending on doing this project in phases. There'll be 3 phases, you know, and I think I'm going to be estimating this amount for each of the phases. Then I'll follow up and verify that that's the case. But I would say, you know, that would be okay.
Okay, and if you're doing Rainscapes, can you also get a rain barrel rebate?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So that raises an interesting, I don't know, Becky, are you done or you have more?
I'm done.
Okay, so you're raising interesting questions that make me think. So to clarify, is there a cap for a property? So is there some limit on what amount, lifetime limit for a property on how much they can get in terms of rebates, or can they get $500 every year? Or can they get $500 for conservation lancing plus whatever they could get for their rain barrel plus soil testing? You know, like what's that look like?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really just more so for the year at the moment. And to be honest, we haven't crossed that bridge where we've had multiple applications coming in. But honestly, I think if the work is being done and it's being, you know, the money is being spent in a good, meaningful way towards this initiative, then I don't see a reason why to cap it at this time, you know, and again, I think that's the important why when you submit that first application, just kind of say like, hey, I'm intending on doing it this way. And then I can go and verify internally. But, you know, like I said, we haven't crossed that problem yet. And I would think that it's not an issue.
Will you use Google Map at all to look at what people are doing?
Yeah, I look for the pre-application. I look at the pictures. I look at Google Maps. I look at really more than Google Maps, our GIS, which is information system, geospatial information systems, which has like topo maps, all our drainage information, so I do a kind of a thorough review on my side just to make sure things are kind of where they're at internally. But yeah, so we look through things.
Okay. So before I don't want to run out of time. I do want to share, I have another slide with some resources. I sent the participants, I'm actually going to do a quick screen share here. And I sent out, prior to this event, resources to the participants. Everybody here should have gotten it, but just to remind you that to get help and for planning and all of those kinds of things, you have about the butterfly garden resource, how to get started with your eco-functioning space, a sample design. So there's some plants, and there's actually a plant list that you can look at to get a sense of how to set that up. That doesn't have to be as fancy as all of this. I think that's what we learned tonight, is it could be very, very simple, but at least this is kind of gives you a little bit of about how to think about drawing those things and making those lists. And then Urban Ecosystem Restoration's resource list is quite extensive, and it includes a lot of similar, I don't know, I don't think it has all of the things that Michael shared earlier, but it has, you know, links to nurseries, to professionals, to places, you know, plant lists, all kinds of different things like that that will be helpful for you when you're trying to create your plan and when you're planning and when you're buying plants and getting things installed. So lots of different useful tools there. In addition, we have, as part of this grant, been offering webinars throughout the last year. And there are a lot of them have been recorded and they're on the UER YouTube page. So you can go to that resource and find webinars to listen to about selecting natives, lots of other native plants that might be helpful to your garden. An advanced topic workshop. We talk about mulch, like all kinds of different things there. And then finally, the Muddy Branch Alliance is offering a webinar on Monday. That's going to be me again, getting started with native plants. So it's about how to draw a plan. And it will be actually largely in the context of drawing a plan that would be suitable for a Rainscapes application. And we're taking it to the more advanced level for the county's application process, because that's a little bit trickier, but it will give you the basics on how to get going on that plan drawing. So I'm going to dig into that a little bit more. That's February 28th at 7 p.m. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to drop some of these, actually, particularly the registration link for that event is going, I'm going to go put it into the chat box so you can sign up if you would like. And also I see one more question here is, what is the deadline to apply for Rainscapes? Okay, do you have a annual deadline or anything like that while I work on?
Yeah, there is no deadline. It's just more so when you start the project, there's a year kind of span in which you're supposed to get the project done. Again, if there's delays, then we can just let me know and we can work through it. But it's more so for making sure we have our budget correct that year timeframe so that we know how much money we have to have budgeted for the program. But there is no deadline. And then I was going to add two other things, Lauren, if you don't mind. One
Sure,
of them
please.
being that we do have a Chesapeake Bay Trust grant program that we offer at Gaithersburg for any bigger projects that have to happen on kind of HOA property or faith-based properties or nonprofit properties. That does very similar things such as the conservation, landscaping, tree plantings. It encompasses so much more that those funds can help provide. Then we also have what is called the Neighborhood Matching Grant Program, which is ran through, I think, our Economic Development Office, but that's another source of money for HOA properties. And again, you can do tree plantings and other kinds of landscaping with that money as well, but it's not for private properties, that's for HOAs.
Great, lots of good stuff. Okay, I'm putting links in the, I'm going to put UER's resource link. Oops, I can't spell. In there too. And you all, as I said, have these in your registration information for this event. So, all right, any other questions? And I see Gwen is from the Trust is here tonight with us, so thanks for joining us. And thank you for funding this project. And anything else?
No, I got a private message asking if our conservation landscaping would fund a rain garden. And my initial answer to that is probably yes. I mean, just because it encompasses a lot of the same stuff, but again, if you're looking for that, let us know and we can talk a little bit more just to make sure. But my initial thing is yes.
And I see, will the Muddy Branch Alliance webinar be recorded? I think so. I need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure we are planning to record it. So I'll answer that. Yeah, lots of good, there's lots of webinars out there if you kind of hunt around for this sort of thing with plant selections. I can also mention the Maryland Native Plant Society has held a series of webinars. The topics range widely. Some of them are a little more about, specific plant species and things like that, but they have also had some nice sessions from people who talk about good landscaping plants. So lots of different ways to get that kind of information if you're interested in that. Any other questions? And Rainscapes, let's see. Bess says Rainscapes and grants are funded through Gaithersburg stormwater fee. Yes, good point. So those of you who are living in Gaithersburg and you're paying your stormwater fee, it's going to great causes, doing good work for your environment and for you, beautifying your communities and benefiting, stormwater management that helps your creeks and streams and all kinds of other biodiversity, all of those other, benefits that come from planting natives and doing that sort of work. So it's a great program. You're lucky to have it here in Maryland. I mean, not every place I've lived has had a rebate program either. So this is a really nice bonus to have this available to you.
I would also add, Lauren, if there are other things you would like to see in our Rainscapes rewards program, definitely reach out to the Marion City Council. They're a great resource to be able to kind of leverage to get things done here at Gaithersburg in a way. Sometimes it's hard for me to generate momentum up, but when Marion City Council, hears, because they really do, they listen to the community and want to help out the community. If there's something you want to see, staff will look into it if you let them know.
I'm not a resident, so I'm not sure if I might be speaking out of turn, but I have had more than one person ask me about permeable pavement, wishing that was a rebatable item.
Yeah, and that one is actually being put onto the Gaithersburg has what the EAC, which is an Environmental Affairs Committee, and a part of their committee, they have an action plan that they develop every few years to be a sustainable Maryland certified community. And a part of that is the permeable pavers rebate investigation and to set that up a part of our Rainscapes rewards program. So that a long-winded answer to say it should be coming soon.
Okay. I mean, it's not the same as planting. I'll just clarify that is a thing that is like kind of a hardscape kind of situation. It's not providing, pollinator benefits so much as it is really helping to reduce the stormwater. And sometimes, especially, I, run up against this a lot in your HOA areas where the housing is so tight and there's so little ground to work with. It would be helpful to have another tool to manage stormwater that way. So,
Can
Becky,
I ask one
yes.
question?
Yeah.
I know garden soil testing for my vegetable garden, why you would do that, but why would we do it for our conservation landscaping? If it's native plants, this is the dirt they want, right?
Yeah, Lauren, I don't know if you want to chime in on that one.
So I'm not sure what your goal of your rebate program is, but I'm going to guess that perhaps it has to do with turf grass management.
Yeah.
okay.
It's so it was written in response to, we have the organic pesticide ordinance now at Gaithersburg. We're not supposed to be using any, non-organic pesticides. So this is a way of trying to help offset any kind of soil test for maintaining the turf and stuff in their yards.
Right. So if you have turf grass in your yard, it's important to keep it healthy, because healthy turf grass will be better at managing stormwater than unhealthy compacted turf grass. And if you want to have healthy turf grass, you need to know something about the soil conditions, so that because you generally have to have inputs. You need to manage the pH so that it can grow well. Turf grass is kind of particular about that. It's not the same, right? With native plants, you don't really need to do a lot of that kind of pH testing. They're adapted to the conditions generally. You might want to know something about your clay silt, loam situation, but that's probably a different kind of test than I think what the city's probably aiming for. I think they're probably trying to get you to be more cognizant of how you're fertilizing and treating your lawn, so that people have a tendency to just kind of go out and put a bunch of chemicals down without knowing. So if you incentivize the testing, then you get it tested and you put down the appropriate amount, you're managing your land a lot better. So, all right. Let's see. Thanks for joining us. So I guess I think we're wrapping up now. Before you go, if you would be, we don't have too many participants here tonight, but if you want to share something that you learned tonight that would help you move forward, we'd love to hear it. You can drop it in the chat box, or even say it out loud if you like. So love to know what you picked up from this, and if there's anything else that we should do to help you or share. If you have another type of webinar you think we should do in the future, we'd love to know that too.
I'll say thank you for making it an easy thing. It doesn't sound daunting, and otherwise we might do it anyway, but this way we might do it better.
Yep, of course.
Great. All right. Thank you again, Michael, for joining us
Mhm.
tonight. Really appreciate your time and everything that you're doing over at the city to help improve the environment. It's been fun working with you. And with that, I will stop recording if I can figure out how. There we go.